Good afternoon and welcome to one more webinar from Telerik India. This is a series of webinars that we do here for India region from Telerik. It's pretty much every Thursday 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. India Standard Time and close to 3 webinars in a month. If you want to know more, you can go to www.telerikhelper.net. That's a website where we keep posting the schedule and you can pretty much sign up for our future webinars there. Well, today we're going to be talking about responsive layouts for ASP NET Webforms. I forgot to put a word here, server-side responsive layouts for ASP NET Webforms. So that's the specific agenda or the specific topic that we're going to be looking at in today's webinar. It's not just responsive layout, rather it's a server-side responsive layout. As you know, ASP NET Webform is completely server-side technology, meaning all the controls are server-side. So we're going to be looking at how we here at Telerik provide you a very cool, lightweight, small, elegant control to do a layouting from the server side. And I'm going to talk about a very specific use case where this actually helps, controlling the layout from the server. If you have been a regular, you would have known, who's the person behind the mic. Otherwise, if you're coming here for the first time, that's me. That's my name is Lohit G, and that's how I look. And I'm a technical evangelist at Telerik India, and I'm also a Microsoft MVP in the area of ASP.NET and IIS. My official email ID is lohit.nagaraj@telerik.com. I'm available on Twitter. If you want to tweet to me, that's my handle there. Kashipas.com is my personal website where I mostly write on ASP.NET. Telerikhelper.net is a website where me and my colleagues, we keep writing things on Telerik, like how to do some things with Telerik controls. So you may want to bookmark that. And then of course our global website, www.telerik.com. If you want to know more about the company, the products that we support, you can just head over here. Enough of me, about me. So today's agenda, it's a very, as I said in the beginning, it's going to be a very short and crisp webinar today. We're going to be looking at what do we mean by responsive layout, and then I'm going to introduce you to UI for ASP NET AJAX if you've not heard of that. And of course, the control which makes it possible to create a server-side responsive layout. It's known as RadPage Layout. And of course, no webinar is done without demos. So we're going to be jumping into demos as and when we look at things. So that's the agenda, short and sweet agenda. I know today is a cricket match between India and Australia, the semi-finals for the Cricket World Cup. So I don't want to hold you long, so I kept it very short and sweet, and then we'll try to see how fast we can get out and then catch on the game. So let me start. So first thing, responsive design layout. Let's be responsive. So what I want to do is just give me a second. I want to show one website, especially our particular website, telerik.com, and then I'm trying to connect my phone and then trying to project on the screen and then show you, if I visit our website on desktop browser, and then if I visit the same website on, let me open up in Explorer, Internet Explorer, and then we'll go to telerik.com. So here is www.telerik.com. So this is a global website, and now I'm going to. So what you're seeing here is, this is a desktop browser. So you see a lot of, if I click on products, take a look at how nicely the product menu has been done, and not only that, we have a background here, which is like a panning video coming up, all those things. And if you look at the content itself, there is 3-column layout here. So in the 3-column layout, we are doing so many stuff. And then, okay, so that's how the desktop browser looks like, right? So now let me project my screen from my, when I say project my screen, it's my phone. So this is my phone. I'm actually showing you my phone now. I'm trying to mirror my phone and then show you share the screen. I'm not sure if it is updated. Yeah, there you go. So now you should see my phone on the screen. Now I'm going to go to Internet Explorer here on the phone. I'm trying to see if you guys are able to see me. Looks like there is a lag. Typically a lag of a couple of seconds, so that's fine. So I'm going to tune it when I show you things, and then I'll try to attune what I say and everything. So basically now what I've done is, okay, am I connected? I am connected. What happened to my Internet Explorer? Let's go back again. There you go. So a moment ago we saw the desktop browser, and now what you're seeing is the same website but on my mobile, and what you see is a very different look and feel. Notice what happens when I go up. So whatever was a 3-column layout is now becoming a single column layout, and the content is pretty much taking complete space that is available on a mobile browser. So the point I'm trying to make here is, this is responsive thing that we talk about. Basically, if you look at, so let's see what happens to the menu. So if you look at the menu, there you go. So the menu comes up completely different now. If you see here, whatever was coming in a full-blown C. So enough of this. So let's come back to. So there you go. So this is the desktop browser. Maybe on your laptops or desktops. So this is the browser, full-fledged browser, and then this is how our website is. But when I see the same website on a phone, the things are completely changed. So that is what we mean by responsive. So before we head out, so if you see here in my slide deck, whatever I put up there, it's basically what we call as a three screen factors, or form factors as we call it. So yeah, there you go. So it's updated for you on the screen now. So typically now whenever you're doing any particular kind of a web application or any web page, forget application, basically a web page that you have needs to be supporting majorly 3 form factors as of now. One is the traditional desktop browser, second is the tablet, or let's not call it a browser, rather it's the traditional desktop screen size, and then the tablet screen size, and then the phone screen size. And not only that, in the phone you have pretty much varied width and height, or the form factors varies in the phone arena. At least in tablet area you have 7-inch tablet or a 10-inch tablet, but when it comes to phone you have anywhere around 3.5-inch phone screens to yeah, I think there's some lag in the screen, so just let it catch up. So I'm seeing it's taking a little bit of lag, like a 3-4 seconds or 5 seconds. So sorry about that. Looks like my internet is very bad today. But the concept that I'm trying to say is these 3 screen factors that we have, and then your web pages that you design, or web pages that you pretty much develop, you need to take care of these 3 form factors without fail. Today it's all about this. So when I say responsive design or layout, it's basically adapting your application to client devices. When we say client, it's nothing but maybe a phone, maybe a tablet, maybe the desktop browser. So for a web page, the client is the browser. The browser may be on a Windows phone, sorry, the browser may be on a phone, the browser may be on a tablet, the browser may be on a desktop. So it doesn't matter, but what matters is when my web page is viewed on these 3 screen form factors, or these 3 clients, or these 3 browsers, how does my web page look like, right? So you have desktop, tablet, mobile browsers. So how do you adapt, or how does my web page adapt to these different browsers and dimensions? So typically, if you see what people do for this, okay, is this new? No, we have been doing this from quite some time, but the word responsive UI or UX, it became popular very recently thanks to the proliferation of mobile devices. You started, so the people, end users of applications started going towards mobile more and more. They started looking at things, looking at applications more from the mobile, than maybe from the desktop browser and things. So that called for something known as responsive. So if I design a web page for a traditional browser, I need to make sure that it works well on a mobile browser, because now we have nearly 1 billion devices, and then the traffic coming from mobile devices are more compared to a traditional browser. These are some of the statistics that you can pretty much find out, if you go to Gartner or anything, and then they will be able to give you some statistics like, hey, the traffic generated through mobile was this much last year versus the traffic generated from a desktop browser. So at the end of the day, what is happening is people are experiencing the web applications or web pages over mobile more than your traditional desktop browser. At least there is a rise in these mobile experiences. So how do you achieve responsiveness, or how do you become a responsive layout? Typically you would resize the content placeholders. Basically every web page may have a header, content, sidebars, and then footer. So what you do is you will resize these depending on what screen size you're looking at. Or another thing that you would typically do is hide certain content placeholders depending on the screen sizes. Maybe when I'm looking at a desktop browser, the sidebar 1 and then sidebar 2 makes sense. But if I'm looking the same page in a mobile browser, it doesn't make sense. The sidebar 1 and sidebar 2 doesn't make sense. Just let there be a content, the header, content, and footer, something like that. Of course, Bootstrap is very famous or very popular, and community, the whole web community is using Bootstrap. In fact, Microsoft has made Bootstrap the default layouting system in Visual Studio. Like as of now, if you go to Visual Studio, and then if you're on latest framework like 4.5 or starting from Visual Studio 2013, they switched over to Bootstrap. So what is Bootstrap? It's a client-side layouting system. Basically, the Bootstrap defines a virtual 12 column grid, and you can actually say that, hey, you can go and then say, I want to create column 1, column 2, column 3, or I want to create 3 columns with each column spanning 4 columns internally. So like that. So you do not have to worry about handling different columns, hiding different columns, or resizing different columns when it comes to the layout. What Bootstrap does is Bootstrap will look at the screen size, and then you would have to tell Bootstrap that, hey, I want this column to come up on a large screen. I don't want this column to come up on a small screen. So you typically are using certain CSS3 classes or certain CSS classes that Bootstrap has written, and then because you have put up the class knows what to do at different dimensions. So basically, in my next slide, I'm going to talk about how this is made possible. So this is basically just a heads up on what you mean by responsive design or responsive layout. So typically, if somebody comes and asks you what is a responsive design or what is a responsive layout, don't get overwhelmed. It's just simple thing: adapt your application to client devices. That's it, right? You can explain to them like, hey, if I have a website, if you're looking at in a desktop browser, it should make use of all the space available in the desktop browser. But the same website, when seen on a mobile browser, it should be able to make sure that it's a small screen size, and then it should adapt to that small screen size, and then give the experience the way it should be on a mobile browser. So that's what responsiveness is all about. But how is this possible, right? If I'm talking about 3 dimensions, 3 form factors, and then I want my web page to actually adapt itself, how do I do this without writing code, right? So yeah, that is possible through what we call as media queries. In CSS3, this is a standard now, and then they call it as media queries. But in CSS2, it was known as media type. So, but now it is getting standardized in terms of we are all on HTML5 and CSS3. So in CSS3, this is known as media queries. So what are media queries? Basically, these are certain rules to define different style for a different media types and devices. So simple, these are CSS rules, right? And then we define it for different styles. so you are defining different style rules for different media. So when I say different media types or directives devices, it's nothing but I'm not worried about devices, but rather I'm worried about the dimension. So I know that on a desktop browser the dimension is more than 1000 pixels, right? When it comes to the form factor, it's more than 1000 pixel. And then if I'm looking at a 7-inch tablet or a 10-inch tablet, the dimension there is maybe close to 768 pixel, right? And then when it comes to a phone, maybe the pixel size is close to 400 to 500 pixels. So what I can do is, if you see here, I have a syntax here which says media screen and max width 300 pixel. So what this does is the browser, what it will do is it looks like this style sheets, and then it will automatically adapt, or it will automatically apply this rule when the width of the browser is so and so defined. So when I'm saying, like, till a max width of 300 pixel, the body background should be light blue. If the width of the browser is more than 300 pixel, it's not going to apply light blue. It will be something different. Whatever. So I can define that. So CSS3 is basically, or so the media queries in CSS3 is basically nothing but different style rules for different dimensions. Simple. That's all you got to remember. @media screen and then max width 300 pixel, I need some rule. @media screen and max width maybe 768 pixel, I need something different rule. @media screen and then max width 300 and 1000 pixels, so I need a different rule. So like that. So different rules for different dimension, and then you control you write CSS classes. You can hide certain elements when it crosses certain boundary. You can actually change the color for the body. Typically whatever CSS3 things that you can do, you just put it up in a rule. That's it, and then that rule applies for a particular dimension. So let's quickly dive into a simple example that I wrote. Nothing fancy. So there's a question whether the images used in the page also would shrink based on the device. Nope. So that is a good question. So basically what happens is, when you put up an image, the image picks up whatever available size that you have. So of course, if you are using frameworks like Bootstrap, what Bootstrap does is it has a CSS class for the images wherein they say, like, I believe it's responsive image class or something. There is a very particular CSS class. If you apply to that, what they do is, depending on the size, they will control the size of your image. They will typically, if you had to do it manually, the way you would do it is, when it's in a desktop browser and then the dimension is, let's say, 500 pixels for the image, and I'm going to a mobile browser, you cannot have a 500 pixel image coming up on the 500 pixel on a 300 pixel device is going to be big, and then you'll start getting the scroll bar. So what do? You write a CSS style sheet rule and say, like, hey, when max width is 300 pixel, the CSS class for that image will be like 50% of the image size. So you pretty typically are writing a CSS class, and then inside the class you can say width colon 50% and apply that class to that particular image. That's it. So that is typically what Bootstrap does it for you. So you just consume those classes, but all the code has been already written by the Bootstrap guys. Okay. So now, if what I've done is, I'm going to bring up Sublime. So here is my Sublime. I think it's not yet. Let me know if you guys are able to see the font correctly, otherwise I can just increase a little bit. Let me increase a little bit. Okay, so there's nothing fancy here. What you see here is basically an HTML page, and then what I've done is I just kept one simple text, and then I have a image here. So I kept an image called bigscreen.png, and then here is the interesting thing. So by default, I want this particular color for the body, and that's orange, right? And then I've written saying, like, hey, when the max width of the screen is 1000 pixel, I want the body color to be red. When the max width of the browser is 768, I want the background color of the body to be green. And then remember, we had an image. I want the image to be scaled down to 90%. And then I have a media, when I'm at 400 pixel, I want the color, background color to be blue, and then it's going to be 80%. So that's all. It's a simple CSS media query rules that I've written. But this is going to show you the concept of responsiveness, what happens, right? So I'm going to say open in browser. And let me figure out where it opened. Here it is. So let me wait for it to come. I'm just looking at my audience view, and then I think it's still not refreshed for you guys. Okay, now you guys are seeing. So basically, remember the code that I had written was orange when it's when it doesn't meet any of these 1000 pixels or 768 pixels or 400 pixel. I need the background color to be orange. So that is what it is doing it, because it's now more than 1000 pixels, and then there's no rule or there is a generic rule which says, hey, go ahead and paint the body as orange, right? I'm just showing the code now, so switching to my code. So remember, anything beyond 1000 is going to be used by this generic rule, so this generic rule will be applied. So I've said in my generic rule that paint the body orange, and then the image is going to come up. Now here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to resize my browser. Let me start resizing. Remember, at 1000 pixel, the background color is going to turn red. Okay. So let me go back. So this is at maybe around more than 1000 pixel, but I'm going to now resize to 1000. I'm resizing. I'm not sure how GoToMeeting is going to show you the resizing. Yeah, now you should be able to see I'm resizing this now. We still have not attained the 1000 pixel mark. So as soon as we hit a 1000 pixel mark, the CSS rule of that whatever I've written will be applied. So now there you go. So now we have hit a 1000 pixel mark, and then the screen has automatically turned to red. That's because in the rule I had said whenever the max width is 1000 pixel, I want the body background color to be red in nature. So now I'm going to go and then continue this resizing till 768, I think, whatever I've given. Yeah, 768 pixel. And any moment we should see, like, notice what happened. The image is small, but when I go to the 768 pixel, the image becomes big. So that's because that is what we have said. We said, hey, I want the image to be 80% high width. So it has taken that effect and then it has made it a little big. So the image is going to be bigger. There you go. So the image is bigger, and then also the background has changed. So this is 768, and I had one more rule, and that was 400 pixels. So let me go back to 400 pixel now, and then we should see a blue color coming in, and we have the blue color. So this is typically from a concept perspective what responsiveness is all about. I'm just using CSS media queries and pretty much changing certain CSS classes of my certain objects on elements on the web page, right? So this is typically what Bootstrap does it for you under the hood. You do not have to take care of this. What they have told is, hey, you just use this particular class, and then we'll make sure we'll take care of the different dimensions, and then we'll give you a very responsive layout. So what the kind of responsiveness they provide is, if there was 3 columns, whenever it is in a like a small screen size like a phone, they make it 3 rows. So that is what they have written in the style sheet. But I wanted to give you a heads up that this is all what the responsiveness is all about, a media query, and then you keep changing your CSS classes depending on the CSS classes you have written. You just keep changing the colors or hide a image, or make the image small or something like that. So basically depending on whatever the needs you have. So this is about the responsiveness. Next, let's go back to the slide deck. Now I'm going to introduce you. If you're never heard of Telerik, it's a good point for me to kind of bring you up to date with what we do. So basically, when it comes to ASP.NET AJAX, as you know, ASP.NET AJAX is nothing but a complete server-side technology, and you have a lot of server-side controls in web forms. So typically, whatever control you place on a web form is a server-side control, and not many people understand this. But as soon as you put run at server, what happens is that controls markup is generated on the server, and then the generated markup is sent to the client. So it's not that the run at server control means that it's going to come to the client side. No, it will never, because the browser will never understand ASP colon at all. The browser only understands HTML. So typically in ASP.NET AJAX, you have a lot of server-side control. So what we do here at Telerik is we have this product suite called UI for ASP.NET AJAX. It's a complete toolbox for AJAX application. And it's using UI for ASP.NET AJAX. What you can do is pretty much build any ASP.NET apps for any browser and devices in half the time. Basically all our controls are very rich in terms of the features, in terms of the capabilities. So what you do is you just drag and drop, put it on a web form, and then set up certain properties, and then you're up and go. So if you have a grid, if you need a grid which can do paging, sorting, filtering, all these things, well, you don't have to sit and write the code. Rather, you just provide the data source to the grid, and then we'll do all the necessary things for you. In fact, if you use our ASP.NET Grid and then you have an entity framework or a data access, any ORMs, we do all the paging, we do all the filtering, we do all the sorting on that entity framework data context, on the data context out of the box. You don't have to write any code at all. So that's how flexible, that's how cool the controls are. That's why we say, like, you can do things half the time. Many people are against, like, oh, we shouldn't buy, but rather the benefit here is, you can go to your time to market is going to be more, reduced in terms of, like, if you have to take a month, most probably if you use our controls, you can be done in half the month. So that's pretty much what we kind of do. Some of the key features of our controls are it's a complete set of features and controls, close to 80 plus ASP.NET controls for every need that you can think of in your projects. So I'm going to show the controls in my next slide. So there, our controls are segregated by the project needs, like data controls or navigation controls or layout controls, like that. Of course, we spend a lot of time on performance and user experience. User experience is one of our prime things in our controls. And we give you a seamless user experience across devices and browsers. Many of our controls have out-of-the-box mobile support and responsiveness. One of the biggest things on a mobile is touch. So many of our controls are touch-aware. Not every control, like even a HTML control, is not that great on when it comes to your touch. But we have done a lot of things. We invested a lot of things on how to make it right, and then we know how to get it right. And everything is moving towards HTML5, and so are we. Many of our controls are now rendering HTML5 based. No more table TR TDs, but rather it will be like a divs, all those things. So that's what you would see. So typically we are making use of the data dash attributes, all those good things that HTML5 brings. And many of our controls are now slowly we are churning out their rendering to be of HTML5. We are standards compliance. We area standards, accessibility standards, all those are taken care out of the box. So if you use our controls and then build a web page, rest assured that web page meets the standard. We give you 20 built-in professional themes or skins, as we call it. You don't like it, you can build your own. Of course, it's a developer-friendly tool set because we sit right in your toolbox within your Visual Studio, so it's easier to drag, drop. We give you all the smart tags for all the controls, so you can bring up. Typically you can actually instantiate a grid without running any code. So you drag and drop and go to the smart tags, set up properties with just a couple of clicks, and then there you go. It writes all the code for you. And we do have SharePoint integration and web parts available. And this is the so next we're going to see the 80 plus controls that we have in our portfolio. So and one thing to notice here is we have a lot of segregation done here, grouping done here. So we have controls for data management, we have controls for scheduling, theming, layout, interactivity, media, editors, data visualization, file upload, spell checking, navigation, performance, AJAX, social, SharePoint web part. So what I'm trying to make point out here is you identify the area in the where the control is needed, and just come over here and then see, we have a control for that. If you have a data management needs, we have a lot of controls for data management needs. Client data source is an interesting concept. You don't have to bind the data from server side, whereas we allow you to bind the data from client side for a server side control. So that's interesting. So if you understand how web forms work, this is a completely revolutionary thing. Now, coming back to enough of our control set. So I just had to kind of give you a heads up into what's the control set that we are looking at. Now we're going to be looking at a very specific control available as part of UI for ASP.NET AJAX, and it's known as page layout, or we call it as RadPage Layout when it comes to a control perspective. So it's a server-side layout control. What do I mean by that? It's an AJAX server control. Or it's a web server control. If you have done any ASP colon text box runner server or ASP colon button runner server, yes, this is again a server control, and it gives you the page layout capability. It's very simple and lightweight, not too much baggage here, and it is actually modeled after a grid system. I talked about Bootstrap providing a virtual 12-column grid system, so it's typically the same. Why reinvent something new? But what we have done is we given you the server side aspect of it. That is, from the server you can go and then do something with your layouts. You don't want a particular portion of the layout. You want to hide that layout. Yes, you can do it, but that's not possible in Bootstrap. Not many people know that. I'll come back to what I'm talking about. All this Bootstrap and then all those things. The supported devices as part of our RadPage layout is, we support extra large screens that is greater than 1600 pixel and above, large, maybe close to 1000, medium 768, small, it's like maybe a 400 pixel, and then extra small, which is like 200 pixel kind of thing. So we understand these device dimensions, and then we let you decide what you want to do on these what do you want to do for these device dimensions. So we give you the same pretty similar concepts as Bootstrap. For example, we have the span and then hidden. So span means how much column should I use, or how much virtual. So as I said, it's a virtual grid system, and the virtual grid has 12 columns, and then I can say like, hey, I want to have a column which spans one column, or I want to have a column which spans 3 columns, or something like that. And maybe when I'm on a small screen, I don't want to see the sidebar. So sidebar is using 2 columns, but I can say hidden small, or hidden extra small, or hidden medium, hidden large. So set it to true or false. And we also allow you to decide whether what should happen when the screen is an extra large size, the screen is a large, screen is a medium, or screen is small. So what do you want to do with the column? Do you want to span all the 12 columns, virtual columns, or should you span only 3? For example, on a desktop browser, it is typically a large or an extra large dimension. So if I am creating a content and a sidebar 1 and then sidebar 2, so I may want the content to take up, let's say, 8 virtual columns, and then I want sidebar 1 to take up 2 virtual columns, and then sidebar 2 to take up 2 virtual columns. So we would say like, span 8, span 2, span 2. But when the same screen is seen from a small screen, I don't want sidebar 1 and sidebar 2 coming. So what you can do is you can say for the content column, like span span yes, that stands for small. So on a small dimension, I want to take up all the 12 virtual columns that I have. So I'm going to show the demo, and then maybe you will be able to identify, kind of correlate what I'm talking about. So the elements of these controls are very simple. There are only 3 things. So when you declare a RadPage layout on your screen, that's typically a container, and it's typically a div is what we output. So it's no more a table T or TD kind of stuff. Rather, it's all HTML5 specific things. So when you instantiate RadPage layout, the control, we put an outermost element we render, and then it's a div. And then it supports only two things. As I said, it's a page layout, and then page layout is modeled after a grid system, and then grid will usually have a row and a column, but this is not a TRTD things. But its concept is like, you have a row, each row will have a multiple column, like 12 columns, right? And each column will have its own content. So rows are containers for columns, and you typically use Telerik layout row. That's the the tag that you will need to use. And then inside a Telerik layout row, what you will do is you will pretty much go ahead and then say like use a column, and then you will use a Telerik layout column tag. And inside Telerik layout column, you will put a content, and then that content can be any HTML or any server-side content. Like you want to place a grid or whatever you want to do, you can pretty much do it. It's a content placeholder. So that this is the elements of the RadPage layout. Now let's get into a demo. In the interest of the time, what I've already done is I've gone ahead and then created an empty webforms project. Just give me a second. I'm just getting my Visual Studio into the view. So what I've done here is I've gone ahead and then when you install our UI for ASP.NET AJAX, we give you certain project templates. So typically if you go into File, New Project, so if you see here, we put up project templates like Telerik Webforms application. So what this does is it creates an ASP.NET web application, but adds all the Telerik DLLs, all the Telerik references that is required. We have our own DLLs to be referenced in all those things. So this sets it up for you. It speeds up your development in terms of like, you don't have to manually go add reference. There are certain web.config changes that you will have to see if you're using our control. So when you use our project template and do it, it automatically goes ahead, adds these references. Let me show you. Let me bring up my Zoom it. So if you see here, it has already gone ahead and added all the references that I need in terms of Telerik DLL. So the main one is telerik.web.ui.dll. So that's the assembly which contains all our controls. Of course, these are all other additional things that I've used for this example. So it adds up this, and then if you look at our web.config, it goes ahead and then adds a lot of Telerik related stuff. So there you go. So it goes and then so everything is based on an HTTP handler. If the HTTP handler is not supported, we can do anything on the client side because we rely on this handler for the JavaScript, the style sheets, and all those things. So if you use the project extension, the project template that we ship, and then if you say file new Telerik web application, this is all done automatically for you. Otherwise, you would have to follow our documentation to manually add up all these things. So I have already done that in the interest of the time. So what you're seeing here is a empty default.aspx here. As you can see, let me increase my font size here. And let me collapse the Solution Explorer. So now it should be fairly visible for you guys. So what you see here is, we have our own Rad script manager, and I put my AJAX manager, although in this example it is not required. So now what we're going to do is, this is where we're going to create a page layout. And the page layout is going to be very simple. I'll have a header, I'll have a footer, I'll have a content, I'll have a sidebar 1, and then I'll have a sidebar 2. So let's try to create that thing. So first thing that you need to do is you need to go and then say Telerik rad page layout. If you see here, we have this Telerik rad page layout control. So the IntelliSense is showing that up. And then I'm going to say, give me that. I'll give an ID. So typically we'll say rad page layout 1. This is run at server. And I'll just take a grid type is equal to fluid. Fluid is nothing but it will automatically adjust to the dimension. I can so we'll have a couple of options here, and options are custom. Okay, let me do a live zoom. So if you see, we have 4 options: custom, fixed, fluid, static. Static means don't do anything, let the page layout be as is, do not react to the dimension changes, or do not react, do not be responsive. Fluid is like, it will typically go and then make sure that it adjusts to the whatever screen dimension changes. Fixed, again, it tries to do a little bit amount of changes it can, but up to a very certain level. That's it. Custom, you can define your own custom dimension things that needs to be taken care of. For now, I'm going to say this is fluid. Now once we have done this, so remember I talked about rows, so you will need to say how many rows are there. So I need first row to be of the content, the header. Second row is where I'm going to say the content, and then the sidebar 1 and then sidebar 2, and then I need one more row which is the footer. But everything needs to be encapsulated in rows, and then you will come back here and then say this is a Telerik layout row, and this will have a content, and in this case the content is nothing but I will have a div. I've created a CSS class just to give a background color, all those things. So I will say header. Next, I've created the first row. First row is over. Second row is where we'll need to do a couple of things. One is I want first column. So let me add columns here now. So now what I'm going to say is I need a Telerik layout column, and I want this to span. Notice this. This is what I was talking about. We give you span large, span medium, span small, span extra large, span extra small. So this is basically telling the grid, the layouting system that, hey, whenever you are in a large dimension, I want you to span this many columns. That's all this means. Or whenever you are in a medium dimension, I want you to span this many columns for this column. So now what I'm going to do is, for this I'm going to say whenever you're in a normal dimension, I want you to span 8 8 columns. But if you are ever on a extra small size, screen size, I want you to span 12 columns, all the 12 columns. And maybe if you're on a small screen size, extra small and small screen size, I want you to span this much. I'll give it an ID for this guy. I will say content row, and I will say runout is equal to server, right? So this is one layout. So in this layout, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a content, and I'll give a class is equal to call. So this is my first column in the first second row. Similarly, I want sidebar 1 and sidebar 2, but I don't want them taking up all the 8 columns, but rather I want them to take 2 columns, and I don't want these coming up when they are in extra small or small size. So I will say hidden in extra small is equal to true. So now you can understand, like, this is very human readable thing, like, hide this when there is when this is coming in a small screen size, or hide this when this is coming in an extra small screen size. So that is all we are saying here. And I will say this is sidebar 1, and I'll say this is sidebar 2. Okay, then we are left with one more, and that's the create a row for the footer. So I'll just say Telerik layout row, and the content here is gonna be just a div, and I'm gonna say footer, and then I have a CSS class called footer. I'll just do this. So let's go over this once again. We are creating a page layout here. And then we gave it an ID for that, run at server, grid type is fluid, that is it should react to the dimensions. And then we have rows. We have created our first row, which is going to just show the header. We created our second row, and then in the second row we have 3 columns. First column spans 8 virtual columns, second column spans 2 virtual columns, the third column spans again 2 more virtual columns. But we have said that when on an extra small screen or a small screen, I want this column to be hidden. when on a same thing hidden here, but when on an extra small or a small screen, I want this column to span 12, all the 12 virtual columns. That is all we have said. So let's run this and then we'll see how the UI comes up. So it's building it. So build is succeeded. So it's going to bring up my Internet Explorer. And where did it go? Okay, it's coming up here. So this is the let's give it a couple of seconds more. It's doing a build and my system is completely overloaded, so Visual Studio is taking a little bit of time to prime it up. I have GoToMeeting running, I'm recording the GoToMeeting, and then I have Visual Studio, PowerPoint, so my machine is kind of taking a toll now. Okay, there you go. So this is the layout that we just created. So of course this is a CSS magic that I've done, like the background color is gray and it has a padding between the columns, it has a padding. So this is all the CSS style sheet that I said, but what our page layout gave you was the rows, the columns, and all those things. Now remember we said that on an extra small or a small screen, sidebar 1 should be hidden, sidebar 2 should be hidden. So now let me try to resize it. There you go. If you see, the sidebar 1 and sidebar 2 is hidden, and the content has taken all the available virtual 12 column thing. So there is one property that I can talk about now. On the RadPage layout, we have something called as show grid, and I can say true. So with this, what happens is it will give you that 12 virtual column as a border thingy. So I'll show you now. So let me refresh the page. You will see, like in the background, you will see a 12 vertical columns coming up. So they can notice this now. In the back, you see this stripes coming up here. So this is the grid system that we have. So it is showing the 12 vertical grid system that is there. And so that's what. So we have said, hey, if you notice the content column, I said I want you to span all the 12. So look at this. It has completely taken the 12 columns, right? Whereas if I resize this guy, take a look at what happened to the sidebar. We had told, like, hey, sidebar, you had to take 2 columns, 2 virtual columns. So it has taken those 2 virtual columns. This is fine. This is the responsiveness that you need in your web forms, right? Like this. So when I do this, I want this to happen. You can see sidebar 1, sidebar 2 is happening. So if I look at the generated source code, it's a simple div things that we do. If you see here, remember I talked about the container. So we have gone ahead and then put a div as the outermost container, and then there is this row, and then we have the header coming up, and then we have again another row, and then we have the content row, sidebar 1, and then we have the sidebar 2. And notice this is what we spit out as part of the style sheet when it comes to so you wrote hidden small, hidden extra large. We typically, under the hood, what we are doing is we have style sheets, and then we are replacing your magic strings with this CSS classes. There's a question about, I want to change it from 12 to 16 column. No, as I said, this whole premise of this layouting system is a virtual 12 column grid system. There's no 16 column grid system, because it's a very the reason is everybody kinds of goes ahead with a notion of supporting 960 pixels. That's very close to 1000 pixel, and then this 960, when I divide it by 12, I get a equal ratio of 80 pixels per column. So that's a very accepted number, that everybody goes. Even if you go to Bootstrap, Bootstrap is a virtual 12 column grid system. But what I'm trying to say is, next section, when I do a next demo, you will understand why you need a responsive server-side responsive layout. So this is fine. Assume that you are seeing this particular page in a very small screen size, right? If I go and then make it like this, you see what happens? It is hiding the sidebar 1 and then sidebar 2, but the sidebar 1 and sidebar 2 is still here. Assume this is a very small screen device, like maybe a phone, like my Nokia 920 or whatever. If I view this particular page in my Nokia 920, what happens is the server is sending everything to the client side, that is onto the device's browser, and then the style sheet get applied, and then what they see is like, oh, we are in a very small screen size, oh, the sidebar 1 should be hidden. But what happened was it sent out the complete content of your page to a browser on a mobile device, whereas in the first place you shouldn't be sending that much content to a mobile browser, because the mobile browsers are very limited in bandwidth. If you send your whole web page, let's say you are a home page, and then you send everything, and then all it does is it hides sidebar 1, it hides sidebar 2. So if it has to hide sidebar 1 and sidebar 2, why do you send that sidebar 1 and sidebar 2 content in the first place to the browser, right? That's the question that you have to understand. So typically everybody will go into Bootstrap and it's like, hey, we are writing an responsive web pages, we are writing a responsive layouts using Bootstrap. Well, you are unnecessarily sending all the content that you have in your web page for a small screen dimension, which is otherwise not required at all. And of course, you need to send everything because Bootstrap cannot do it on the server side. Bootstrap can do the magic only on the client side. But whereas what we have given you is, we have given you a concept wherein on the server side, you look at what is the screen size your request is coming from, and then you can decide whether you want to send a very specific portion of the screen or not. So that's our next demo. So we have something called as device detection framework. So let's the slide deck catch up with you guys. So we have something called as device detection framework, which we ship along with this UI for ASP.NET AJAX. So basically, if you look at the tagline, I have put it up as which device, right? So what is this device detection framework? Basically, it determines the screen resolution elegantly. If you want to do it manually, like, hey, where was the request coming from? Like, is it coming from a desktop browser? Is it coming from a mobile browser? Is it coming from a tablet browser? And what is the size, right? So typically, all mobile browsers will actually say like they are mobile browsers, but they will not tell you the screen size, correct? If you look at the user agent string that comes to you, the user agent strings will never tell you what size of the screen is, what's the size of the screen. They will just say like, hey, I am so and so. But what we give you is, if you pass the user agent string, we will let you know what is the screen size. And out of the box, what we have done is we have set up certain thumb rules. We have said that anything which is below 600 pixel, we're going to say that it is a small screen size. Anything between 601 to 1024 pixel, we're going to say it's a medium screen size. 1025 to 1366, it's a large screen size, and anything beyond 1366 is an extra large, right? But how do you detect this screen size? Simple. We have this API called as detector, and it has a method called get screen size. So we have two methods available. We can actually give you the dimension, or we can give you the size. So size is small, medium, large, extra large. Dimension is 100 pixel, 200 pixel, 1024 pixel, like that. So it's up to you. So what I'm showcasing here is one of the examples, which is if I say detector.get screen size and pass the user agent, it will actually tell me if the screen size is small or medium or large or extra large. And this is available as part of our DLL, which is telerik.web.device.detection. So let me explain the problem that I'm trying to hint at. So let me come up with a Chrome browser here, because Chrome has this emulation pretty good. It's easier to do an emulation of a mobile browsers, in Chrome. So where did my browser go? Okay, it's coming up. I'll show you the practical problem. Not many people understand this. If you go to any business person and then you'll say like, hey, he will say like, hey, use Bootstrap so that we support desktop screen, we support tablet screen, we support mobile screen. But they don't realize under the hood that you are sending unnecessary content for a mobile device. So this is a desktop browser. correct? This is a desktop browser, and if I look at the source code, of course we are sending the content sidebar 1 and then sidebar 2, correct? So because everything has to go, and since we have sent sidebar 1, sidebar 2, and then we have this class which says hide it when it's an extra small screen or hide it when it is a small screen. If I resize my screen, of course you won't see sidebar 1 and sidebar 2. There you go. So this is a small screen now, so less than a 600 pixel. But the page content is having everything. The sidebar 1 is also there, the sidebar 2 is also there. My point is, on a mobile browser, this is a waste of the bandwidth. Anyway, I'm hiding it, so don't send it, right? So now, if I go and then emulate, let's say let's say an iPhone or whatever. So there you go. So let me pick an iPhone 6, right? And then I'm going to refresh it. What you're seeing here is, of course, it has hidden the sidebar 1 and sidebar 2. I don't see the sidebar 1 and sidebar 2. I'm seeing only the content. But let me right click, view the source again. Well, what do you see? Let me do that again. I think I have my code put up here, so I have a code for the next one. Yeah, so this is something that I have put up here. So this is the next demo. Let me quickly, I was practicing it and then I didn't delete it. So what I have done is, I detect the screen size, and then if the screen size detected was small, I never send sidebar 1 and sidebar 2 to the client. So let me come back to that later. Let me hide it or comment it, and then we'll show you the problem. Yeah, some of you are saying voice is breaking continuously. I'm extremely sorry about that. The problem is my system is overloaded because I have GoToMeeting running, and then it's recording, then I have a Visual Studio, then I have a PowerPoint open. So what is happening is the voice is getting choppier maybe. So don't worry. We will have a recorded version of this, and then recorded version will have the voice pretty clear. So now let me refresh it again, and this is an iPhone 6, and let's do a little bit of screen size changes so that it hides it. So this is hiding it. Now when I look at the page source, you will still see that the sidebar 1 and sidebar 2 is sent to the client. So I'm an iPhone 6 now, it's a small device, it's a small bandwidth available there, and then I'm unnecessarily sending sidebar 1 and sidebar 2. Why? Because at the end of the day, the sidebar 1 and sidebar 2 will be hidden. It will never be shown, because we have said that on a small screen or on an extra small screen, do not show the sidebar 1 and then sidebar 2, right? Now let me show you the same thing with our device detection framework. So this is the code that I had already written. Let me Control KU. Okay, I'm running. Let me stop the run. Okay, let me increase the font size and I'll explain what I'm doing. So first thing that you need to do is go add reference to our device detection DLL, and that is known as telerik.web.device.detection. So here it is. So it's telerik.web.device.detection. So all I'm doing is on the page load, I just say detector.get screen size request.user agent. That's all. You just pass the user agent that's coming from the request, and then we'll let you know what is the devices. If you look at this device screen size, so it's an enumeration, and it has small, medium, large, extra large. So that's all we do, and you have ability to define your own custom screen size ranges. If you don't want out of the box these 4 things that we provide you. So I'm saying is, if the size is of small, the visible sidebar 1 visibility is false, sidebar 2 visibility is false, and expand the content row to completely take 12 spans, right? That's all I'm saying. So now when I run this, let me put a breakpoint. Let me put a breakpoint quickly. So now since when I'm running, since the desktop browser is coming up, the breakpoint will be hit, and then if you look at the size that it is detecting, it's not going to be a small size, it's going to be an extra large. Let me show you that. So if you see here, the size that has been detected is extra large. That is pretty correct, because the desktop browser size that I have is like close to 1600 or a 1900 width by 1200. Something like that. So now I have an if clause which says, hey, was the size equal to small, then do all these things. So it's not going to be small, so it jumps off and then goes back to the browser, and you get all the four all the things coming up. Sidebar 1 is coming, sidebar 2 is coming. Now if I resize this, of course, since sidebar 1 has that hidden thing, so it will be working like that, so that's not a problem. So this will be sufficing this. So now let's come back here. So now what happens is, when I refresh this page, remember we are on, okay, let me select the model. I'll say iPhone 6 Plus, and let me refresh the page. So now take a look at the user agent. The user agent is Mozilla, it says Mozilla 5.0 iPhone, Apple WebKit, blah blah blah. So typical user agent. So now when I see what's the size, I do an F10, and you will see what is the size. Size is going to be small. There you go. It detected what the size that I'm coming from. I'm coming from a very small size. So what did I say when it is a small size? I said, do not send the sidebar 1. Basically, I'm setting visibility to false. And then I set the content row span to be 12. So now when we do an F5, okay, now when I look at the page source, you will not see the sidebar at all. Here is our header, here is my content, here is my footer. So what did we achieve? We achieved, so in this particular demo, I'm just having one line of text for my sidebar 1 and sidebar 2. But typically in a real world production level website, the sidebar 1 is a huge content, sidebar 2 is a huge content, right? Now what you did was, since you don't want the sidebar 1, sidebar 2 to come up on a very small screen, you never send that content. So you minimize the bandwidth for your page on a mobile device. That is very smart thing to do, because your page is going to be loading faster, versus when you go with Bootstrap, Bootstrap only happens at the client side. There's no way you can control in Bootstrap that, hey, I don't want you to be seen on the UI. Right? You need to send everything, and then Bootstrap what it does is it applies a visibility true false or whatever, something CSS, display colon none and then display colon block on the client side. What is the client side? The mobile browser. So typically you end up sending the whole page content and then it gets hidden. Whereas be smart, you see that it is a small screen, do not send the content at all. Let the content go very small. And then that is what we achieved today with this device detection framework. Well, this is something that we wanted to showcase. So what it does, it reduces the bandwidth. Using the device detection framework, you get the screen size, hide portions not required, reduces content sent to the client, and then bandwidth is saved. That's as simple as it can get with our responsive page layout and then the combination of device detection framework. Well, that's the demo we saw, and pretty much that is all we had for today. And I think we have taken like close to 10 minutes. We are 10 minutes overboard, and let me stop recording for a moment now, and then we'll take up the question and answers if there's any. So thank you very much for each one of you for spending time with us. I know I hope this 1 hour was kind of worth your time, and then we hope you will join us again for our future webinars. Don't forget to visit www.telerik helper.net.